So guys, this episode was wholesome in every way. I loved it. Like so many cute moments. Flirty moment and jealous moment. So the episode starts with a time jump of them being in their second year of college, so I am assuming they're 7 or 8 months. So I guess the reason they had made a big time leap so it wouldn't look too fast because Pat just realized he likes Pran in the previous episode, and they don't have much episodes left now, so this 1 year time gap will assure people that both Pat and Pran really like each other, so even if their parents finds out about them and tries to separate them, both of them will not able to do that now because both love each other, so that 1 year time gap just strengthened their relationship. My favorite scenes from the series was the scene at the theater when Pat and Pran are talking with each other and there are so many people at the stage but they just don't care about them. They are just looking at each other. That was wholesome, and I really how mature boyfriend is Pat is. Like when he saw that Pran was in a sad mood he quickly entered his mood to enlighten him, and that ending scene, when Pran is feeding Pat, and Pat says I will always let my lover win, that just so cute and shows how much Pat likes Pran, that he will give everything. And finally they are following the novel, and the novel PAA was already living in Pat's room because she was already in university, but the series she is now in college. And I had to give points to Pran's parents not being homophobic, but they are just Patphobic. But so far Pran's parents are pretty good. Comparing to Pat's parents who keeps pressuring him to save their reputation, and he keeps forcing him some to do rugby and be manly, so he clearly would be homophobic in the series. In the novel version Pat's dad was clearly homophobic and Pran's dad was also, but he later on accept the fact, and I really want Ink and PAA to be together, and that said let's begin the spoilers. So this would be the spoiler of Ep 10 of Bad Buddy. Now let's begin the spoilers. So it's from Pran perspective, and it started from when Pat sprained his ankle, so Y was still in Pran's room. So after some time Pran said you should go home and take some rest. I had to sleep and to complete my work. Also then Y took a sigh and said you should take some rest. Then Y left his room. Then Pran quickly ran towards the balcony and checked both left and right and down, but Pat was nowhere. Then he started to panic. Then he heard a familiar voice saying you miss me so much. Then Pran looked at the person who said, and it was Pat. Then Pran said do you think it is funny? Then Pat said I wouldn't have to jump from the balcony if your monkey friend didn't show up. Then Pran just sighed and said I am going to sleep. Then Pat you have to come here. I can't walk to your room. I had sprained my ankle. Then Pran said you did what? Then Pat said can't you come, I had sprained my ankle and didn't applied anything. Pat is lying. Then Pran sighed fine I am coming there. Then Pran applied the ointment. Then Pran took Pat to his room. Then next day they had a tournament Architecture vs Engineer, but Pat still didn't recover properly, so Pran keep thinking about him. When the match started Pran's nervousness disappeared and he started to focus on the match, but he can't stop thinking about Pat because Pat was barely walking, so he couldn't focus on the game. Then suddenly Pran got hit by the ball directly on his head. Then he suddenly started to get blurry and fall on the ground, and Pat quickly ran and started to panic, and he said are you okay Pran? Pat put Pran's head at his lap and said where did you get hurt? Then suddenly Y pushed Pat and said what's your deal, leave my friend. Pat ignored Y and he kept worrying about Pran, who barely keeping his eyes open. Then Pat said wait, I'll take you to the hospital room. Pran, are you awake? Ride my back. Then Pran felt unconscious and Pran just keep hearing Pat's voice. Then he fell unconscious. Then Pran opened his eyes in the medical room of the school, and the first thing he hear is Y shouting at Pat and saying to leave the room. The match is over, there is no point of you staying here. Then Pat said I wanna meet Pran, but Y didn't let him meet Pran. Then Y came in the room. Then Y asked are you fine? Then Pran said I am fine, just a headache. Then Y replied then you are fine. A teacher said there is a bruise on your head but you will be fine. Then Pran asked how did I get here? Then Y replied Pat carried you at the back, and it seems like you don't hate each other as usual. Like the way you both look at each other. Enemies don't look at each other in that way. Like I never see that glow on your eyes for anyone. I think you are not enemies, you are more than friends. Pran couldn't say a word, he just looked at the other direction. Then it switched to Pat's perspective, then Pat went after why didn't allow him to see Pran. With a dissatisfied look he went to meet his engineer, and it seems like they were all waiting for him. When Pat reached to their table, the whole table was silent. Then Fum started to ask a question, what's your relation with this guy? Then Pat just avoided them by saying he is just nice to him, and it's called sportsmanship. Then Pat switched the topic with saying he will give a party that they just won against engineers. Then he also said that he will bring his lover for the first time also. Then his friends got excited, so Pat went to his dorm to talk to him. Then Pat saw Pran with a bandage on his head, who was doing his work on the table. Then Pat turned the chair over him and said, are you okay? Then Pran said, you can see I am alive. Then Pat said, please don't joke about this. I was really scared. Then Pran said, sorry, I am fine. Tell me, what do you wanna say? Then Pat told him that he has to come to the liquor store and he will introduce him as boyfriends to his friends. So at first Pran was hesitant that Pat don't get cancelled by his friends, but then Pran agreed. Then Pat and Pran went to the club. There was already Pat's gang was there. Then they asked, where is your lover? Then he said, this guy is my lover. Then Fum said, don't tell you are dating the guy who hit me. Then Pat said softly, he never hit you, I always fights him during the fight. Then Pran said, you order me a glass of beer, I will go to the bathroom. Then his friends started to question how he fall in love with him, how it started. Then Pat suddenly heard a loud bang. Then he saw that outside the club that a group of people are beating Pran. Then Pat without a doubt jumped into the fight and protected Pran, but both of them were outnumbered. Then Pat gang also joined them, but the opposite gang was so big even Pat gangs was outnumbered during the midst of fight. Pran also called Y and Y bring his architecture friend. Then both the gang fights together with those goons. Then during the midst of fight Pat got severely injured on the head. Then Y gave Pran his car keys and Pran took Pat to the hospital. So for today this enough. Let's see we will get this scene or not in the series.